Hello dear students. So, as we have learned in the last class about how do organisms reproduce, and we have covered the asexual reproduction in the organisms. Today we are going to cover the sexual reproduction mode in the organism, plants as well as animals too. And in animals we will take the example of human beings. So let's start. When we are talking about sexual reproduction, as we all know that sexual reproduction always involve two parents, and these two parents will be male and female. Please remember, this is the symbol. Circle with an arrow is the symbol of male parent, and circle with the plus sign is the symbol of female parent. So in the sexual reproduction, two parents are involved, and when these two parents are involved, that means there will be meiosis, that is also called as reductional division, for gamete formation. When two parents are involved, always there will be gamete formation. Now, because of meiosis, the gametes will be haploid in nature. They will have only a single set of chromosomes. They are not in pairs. So these gametes, to make a viable cell, to make a living cell, needs to fuse with some another gamete to make the zygote. So there will be the next step, fertilization. In sexual reproduction, always the first step is gamete formation and second step is fertilization, where fusion of gametes occur. This is the basis of sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. These two parents will be male parent and the female parent. In the male parent, the male gametes are going to form. In the female parent body, the female gametes are going to form. And finally, these gametes, which are formed by meiosis, which are haploid in nature, they will undergo the process of fertilization. Now, in the mode of sexual reproduction, we will first start with the flowering plants. As you can see here, the picture of the flower. I hope you all remember this picture. In this picture, you can see a flower, and those plants which are having flowers, they are called to be angiosperms. Angiosperms are the flowering plants. Flower, as you can see here in the picture, this flower is called to be a modified shoot. The shoot of the plant body modified into flower for sexual reproduction. At the time of sexual reproduction only, the axillary buds, they will get modified in the form of flower. Now, what structures we generally see in flower? For that, we have to do longitudinal section of a flower. In the longitudinal section of a flower, we will observe certain floral parts. The stalk of the flower is always called as pedicel. The swollen base of the flower is called thalamus. Now, above the thalamus, there is a hole, a circle of green leafy structures. And these green leafy structures circle, that complete hole is known as calyx. And single green leaf of that calyx is known as sepal. So these green leafy structure, this leaf is actually called sepal, and the complete whole, the group of sepal, is known as calyx. Right? These colorful leaf-like structures, they are known as petals of the flower, and the complete whole, the circle of these petals, is known as corolla. Okay. Now, in the center part, you can see this green structure and these yellow structures. These are actually the reproductive parts in the flower. Rest all, from pedicel till petals, they all are the accessory organs which are helping in the process of reproduction, but they are not directly involved in the process of reproduction. And when we talk about these structures which are involved in sexual reproduction, we will use the word androecium and gynoecium for them. So here we will make it clear that flower is the reproductive part reproductive part of the plant. This flower is modified shoot, right? Now this flower is having accessory organs which helps in reproduction, not directly involved in reproduction, and the main reproductive organ. Each flower is having accessory organs and the main reproductive organ. In accessory organs, what we include? We include pedicel, we include thalamus, we include sepal, and we include petals. So we will mention petals, sepals, thalamus, and pedicel, which are the parts of flower. They all are accessory organs. And the main reproductive organ of the flower is the male reproductive part, which is called androecium, and the female reproductive part, which is called gynoecium. So when we are talking about sexual reproduction, we have to mainly focus on the reproductive parts of the flower. We will study about these reproductive parts in detail. Now, as you can see here in this picture, this is a flower, this is a colorful flower. Now, generally what happens when we talk about flower, students, flower can be bisexual or they can be unisexual. Unisexual. Bisexual, when both male and female reproductive structures are present within a flower. B for both, B for bi. Both male and female reproductive structures present in same flower. While in unisexual flower, only one type of reproductive structure will be present. So either the flower will be male flower or the flower will be female flower. So the male flower will develop the male reproductive organ in it. The female flower will develop only the female reproductive part in it. The male flowers are called to be staminate flowers. Staminate flowers. And the female flowers of unisexual plants, they are called to be pistillate flower. I hope you can relate with the names, because we say this female part, the center part of the flower, is called pistil, or we also call it carpel. Pistil or carpel in a flower is the female reproductive part, and these structures are called stamen. Stamen are the male reproductive part, pistil are the female reproductive part, right? So those flowers which are having only pistil, only female part, they will be called as the pistillate flowers. Those flowers which are having only stamen, they will be called as staminate flower. Even some flowers, these type of flowers are present in some specific plants, like we take example of date palm and papaya. These are the plants where unisexual flower will be seen. So these are the concept that if we want to study about sexual reproduction in flowers, we must know that flowers can be bisexual as well as unisexual. In bisexual, both male and female reproductive parts are present. In unisexual, the male part is present in the staminate flowers only. The female part is present only in the pistillate flowers, right? So we have this structure of flower and we have the different parts of the flower. Let's see again. This stalk is called pedicel. This solan base is called thalamus. The green leaves are called sepals. The colored leaves are called petals. The male part is called stamen and the female part is called pistil. So these are the flower parts. Next, we have to understand the male and the female reproductive structures of a flower. Now this is the picture which is showing you a stamen. Stamen, the male part in the flower. Each stamen consists of two structures. This top structure is called to be anther. These are two lobes, so we can label them as anther lobes. And this thread-like structure below the anther is called filament. So the male reproductive part of the flower stamen consists two structure. The top structure is called anther, which is having the anther lobes, and the thread-like structure below the anther is called filament. And if we look at the female part of the flower, this is called the female part of the flower, which we call as pistil, or we call it carpel. Each pistil or carpel is having three structures in it. The top disc-like structure is called stigma. The top disc-like structure is called stigma. The tube-like structure below stigma is called style. The tube-like structure below stigma is style, and this swollen base is called ovary. And these ball-like structure inside the ovary are called to be the ovules, where the female gamete will be formed. So we have this structure, the male structure in the flower and the female structure in the flower. Now we have to also understand that whenever we are talking about any pistil, in the ovary part there are many ovules. In these ovules there are diploid cells. These diploid cells undergo meiosis to form female gamete. When this female gamete is formed in each ovule, we will get a structure called as embryo sac. After meiosis, each ovule develop into embryo sac, where the seeds will be formed, where the embryo will develop. So we say that each ovule develop a structure called embryo sac, which consists three cells on the top, one cell, bigger one at the bottom, two cells on the side of this bigger cell, and this is called the central cell. So there are number 1, 2, 3, 3 cells on the top, 1, 2, 3, 3 cells on the bottom, and there is this cell, 7 cells. So there are actually in an embryo sac 7 cells. And if we locate their nucleus inside these cells, according to the rules what we have studied, that each single cell should have one nucleus, but here what we see that each top 3 cell, these are called as the antipodal cells because they are on the pole. Antipodal cells are having single nucleus in them, so they antipodal cells contain 3 nucleus. The bottom 3 cells, the central one is called egg cell. The side cells are called synergids. These synergids helps the pollen tube to give the direction. They are all having single nucleus in them. Only this cell, which is called the central cell, is having 2 nuclei in it. This central cell is having 2 polar nuclei. These are called polar nuclei. So what I said, that inside each ovule, embryo sac-like structure develops after meiosis, and this embryo sac structure consists 7 cells, 8 nucleated structure. Each embryo sac is a 7-celled, 8 nucleated structure. Why I am telling you? Because when we will talk about fertilization, this structure, this arrangement will help us a lot. to understand the concept. Okay, so we have to understand that the male reproductive part is the stamen, the female reproductive part is the pistil. In the pistil, the swollen base is called ovary. Inside the ovary, there are ovules. In the ovule, after meiosis, embryo sac-like structure develops. In each embryo sac, there are 7 cells, 8 nucleated structure which are developed. Right? This is clear? Now, when we say about fertilization, before fertilization, there is a process which should occur which is known as pollination. Pollination is simply transfer. Transfer of what? Transfer of pollen grains. From where to where? Transfer of pollen grains from stamen to the stigma. So, transfer of pollen grains from stamen to stigma. Stigma is the part of pistil of the carpel. Now, this transfer of pollen grain from stamen to stigma can be within a flower, within a flower, or it can be to another flower of another plant. On that basis, we have divided pollination into two categories. What we call them? If the pollen grains are transferred within the same flower, we call it self-pollination. And if the transfer of pollen grains is to the another flower of the another plant, we call it cross-pollination. As you can see here in the picture too, when we say the transfer of pollen grains are within the same flower, we call it self-pollination. When the transfer of pollen grains are from one flower to another of another plant, we call it cross-pollination. Right? Now this pollination, either it is self-pollination or cross-pollination, they mostly require pollinating agent. Pollinating agent which will help in transferring the pollen grains. So the pollinating agents, they can be air, water, insects, human, etc. So, cross-pollination generally require the pollinating agents where air can play its role, water can play its role, it can be with the help of insects or even human. We are also transferring the pollen grain from one place to another or from one flower to another flower. This is transfer of pollen grain from stamen to the stigma. Once the pollen grain reaches to the stigma, suppose there we have that pollen grain. Now what will happen? Fertilization will take place, or we also call it pollen pistil interaction. When the pollen grain will come in contact with the pistil, stigma region mainly, there will be pollen pistil interaction. And this pollen pistil interaction is a chemotropic movement that we have studied in control and coordination. The growth, tropic movement means growth is towards which stimuli? Chemical stimuli. So growth towards chemical stimulus. Growth of what? Who is going to grow here? What is growing here? The pollen tube. From the pollen grain, this pollen tube is going to grow. So pollen tube grows towards the chemical stimulus. Now who is going to secrete this chemical stimulus? The ovary. Right? So chemical stimulus released by ovary. Actually, these are the sugary substances which are released by the ovary whenever same species pollen grain reaches to the stigma, and when these pollen grains receives those stimulus, they will germinate, they will form the pollen tube, and pollen tube from that stigma covering that style region will reach to the ovary part. Once it reaches to the ovary part, fertilization will take place. And who is going to give the direction during that process? Synergists, right? So when we talk about fertilization, students, in case of flowering plants, in case of flowering plants, we say fertilization is double fertilization. It is called to be double fertilization. Why double? Because there are two steps. It completes in two steps. Why so? Because each pollen tube consists two male gametes. In each pollen tube, there are two male gametes which are coming to the ovary. Right? So, two male gametes will fuse with some other two cells, different two cells. So, in this double fertilization, the first step, when the male gamete fuse with the egg cell and form zygote. Now male gamete was haploid, egg cell was haploid, and zygote that form is becoming diploid, 2n. N is from male gamete, N is from egg cell, N plus N becomes 2n. So we get the diploid zygote. Now remember, in fertilization, every fertilized ovule, every fertilized egg cell, zygote, develops into a seed, right? This seed will be formed by fertilized ovule. This question is generally asked in exam. What forms the seed structure? From where seed is originated? Seeds are originated after fertilization of the ovule, right? Where these ovules are located? What was that swollen base called? Ovary. So after that, when all the ovules are fertilized, the ovary which was containing all these ovules will convert into a fruit, right? So this fruit like structure will be formed by ovary. Always remember, ovule develops into seed and ovary develops into fruit. Okay? So I told you double fertilization. I have told you one step only where the male gamete fuses with the egg cell and form the zygote. In the second step, the second male gamete fuse with the central cell. I hope you remember the central cell was having two nuclei. So what happened? N from male gamete, N plus N from central cell, N plus N plus N, 3N are there. So it forms the triploid structure which is known as endosperm. By second fertilization, endosperm is formed. Okay, let's summarize it. What we have said, that in fertilization of flowering plants, it is double fertilization. There are two steps. One is called where egg cell fuse with the male gamete. Egg cell is haploid, male gamete is haploid. What they form? Zygote, which is diploid. Right? In second step, the central cell, polar nuclei, which were N plus N, fuse with the second male gamete, and when these fuses, they form triploid 3N endosperm. They form triploid endosperm. It is 3N. Zygote was 2N. Okay? We have some names also for these two different steps. This first step where egg cell and male gamete is fusing, they are called, this step is called syngamy. And the second step where central cell and second male gamete is fusing, this is called triple fusion. Right? So in plants, double fertilization takes place, which is completed in two steps. Number one is called as syngamy and number two is called as triple fusion. Now after fertilization, we also say it post fertilization. So in post fertilization, what happened? The ovule develop into seed and ovary develop into fruit. So this is how sexual reproduction gets completed in the flowering plants. This is all about sexual reproduction in plants. Now we will move towards the sexual reproduction in human beings. When we are talking about sexual reproduction in human beings, in human, what is human? We are unisexual. Unisexual means the male body and the female body, they have the different structure. Male body have the male reproductive part and the female body is having the female reproductive part, right? Reproductive part. So human beings are unisexual. Now what is interesting here, let's start with the male reproductive part first. The male reproductive part in this male reproductive part is also called as urinogenital system. Why so? Because in human male body, the urinary system and the reproductive system, urino refers to the urinary system, genital refers to the reproductive system, they both are connected. What I mean to say, that the passage of urine and semen are common in human body. That's why we call this system as urinogenital system. This is only in males. In females, the urinary system and the reproductive system are totally different. They are having the different path. But in case of human male, the urine and the semen, they are released out. They have the common passage. That's why we call them urinogenital system. Now let's understand the structure of the male reproductive system. As you can see here in this picture also, what you observe that in each male reproductive system, there are pair of these ball-like structures which are known as testes. The main reproductive part in the male reproductive system is testis. Testis is the place where sperm, the male gamete, are formed. And testis is the structure where the hormone testosterone is released. This testosterone is performing two main functions. Number one, it is responsible for the formation of sperm and it is also regulating the secondary sexual characters in the male body. So the main reproductive part, the primary reproductive part in male body is testis. Now you can see this testis is covered by a sac-like structure, a bag-like structure. This sac is called scrotum. Please remember, each testis is located in a bag-like structure. Bag-like structure which is called scrotum. Okay, one more thing. The testes located inside the scrotum, they are never inside the abdomen. They are always located outside the abdomen, and this shifting of testis outside the abdomen takes place when the male fetus was developing in their mother's womb. This is known as descending of the testis. And if it fails during that pregnancy time, the male boy, the baby boy who will be taking birth, they will be impotent. Their reproductive system will not be working. So it is a very important step, and this shifting, this descending of scrotum from the abdomen takes place during the fetal development only. This scrotum, this bag-like structure, they are located outside abdomen. And these scrotum regulates temperature 2 to 3 degree less than body temperature. And this 2 to 3 degree less temperature is required for sperm formation. It is mandatory, it is must that the temperature must be low for sperm formation. If it is not so, then sperm formation will not take place. So first of all, we have to understand that testis is the primary reproductive organ in the male reproductive system. Testes are located in a bag-like structure. This bag-like structure is located outside the abdomen, and this is why, so the temperature can be regulated 2 to 3 degree less than the body temperature for sperm formation. Now you can see from this scrotum, the tubes are coming out. These tubes are called as, sorry, these tubes are called as vasa deferens. Vasa deferens. Vasa deferens are the tubes which are taking out the semen and they are sending it to the urinary bladder. Okay, they are finally connected to the urinary bladder. So in that urinary bladder will pass its material through the urethra. So this vasa deferens will get connected to the ureter. Ureter will open into the urethra and urethra will release the semen. This external genitalia part in male body is known as penis. This is called the external genitalia part, which will help in releasing out urine as well as it is helping in releasing out semen. So if we say the structure of the male reproductive system, if we see this, there are the main reproductive structures like in the male reproductive system, first of all there is testis. Testes are located in scrotum. Then testes are opening into vasa deferens. Vasa deferens are connected with ureter. Ureter are opening into urethra and urethra are releasing the sperm and the semen by penis. Now please make a note, then when vasa deferens is connected with ureter, at this time there are some accessory glands. Very important. There are some accessory glands in the male reproductive system. These accessory glands are seminal vesicle, and prostrate gland. These are the two male glands which are connected, which are present before the vasa deferens opens into ureter. What is the role of this seminal vesicle and prostrate gland? They helps in making the fluid in which sperm will be moving. So that semen, formation of semen is the main function of these two glands, seminal vesicle and prostrate gland. They help in formation of semen. Right? This semen is having alkaline pH. This semen is having nutritious material for development of sperm. This semen is having some nourishing substances which are also providing energy to the sperm, right? Like sucrose. It is also having sucrose. So all these substances are the part of semen, and semen is formed by these two accessory glands which are connected with vasa deferens and when the vasa deferens is connected with ureter. So we will always show the seminal vesicle and this prostrate gland like this. So this is the seminal vesicle and the lower one is called as the prostrate gland. These two glands you have to remember. So now we can label the whole diagram. This is testis. You will also label the outline of testis as scrotum. Then the tube coming out scrotum is called vasa deferens. Vasa deferens will be connected to ureter. But before that there are seminal vesicle and prostrate gland. They will open into urethra. And the external genitalia part of male body is called penis. This is the structure of male reproductive system. Now penis is the external genitalia part. During sexual intercourse, With the help of penis, the males release their semen in the female reproductive system. Right? Now we have to understand the structure of female reproductive system too. This is the picture which is showing you the structure of female reproductive system. Like in male reproductive system, there were pair of testes. In female reproductive system, there are pair of ovary. They are the pair of ovary. Now these ovaries, they are holded by some ligament structure. They are known as ovarian ligament. These are some ligament structure holding these ovaries. And these ovaries like this, they are covered by a funnel-like shape. And this funnel-like shape will be connected with a tube. So this part, which is a tube part, which is holding or which is covering the ovary, is called oviduct, or we also called it fallopian tube. So this part is called fallopian tube. Now this fallopian tube opens into inverted pear-like structure. This structure is called uterus. Uterus. Always remember, student, mostly while writing they make the mistake. They generally write ureter as uterus and uterus as ureter. Ureter is the part of excretory system. It is present in male and females both. But uterus is the only female reproductive part. Uterus is only in female body. So the oviduct, fallopian tube, opens into the uterus. Now the narrow path of uterus is called cervix, and the opening of cervix is called vagina. These are the structures of female reproductive system. Let me repeat again. There are pair of ovaries. Ovaries are covered by the tube-like structure. These tube-like structures are called oviduct or the fallopian tubes. Fallopian tubes open into inverted pear-like structure, which is called uterus. The narrow ending of uterus is called cervix, and the opening of cervix is called vagina. As I told you, during sexual intercourse, the male will eject its semen into the vagina of female. Now within the semen there is fluid and there are sperms. So these sperms will start moving from uterus. They will reach to fallopian tube. And as the sperms are the mobile cells, the motile cells, they will float and they will reach to the ovary. Right? Now these ovaries will be present in the fallopian tube, because during menstrual cycle, which is a cycle takes place in every month within 28 to 30 day cycle, in female body ovulation takes place, ovum is released in the fallopian duct. So within the fallopian duct, in every month there will be ovum available. At the time of availability of ovum, if intercourse takes place, sperm comes in contact with the ovum, it will leads to fertilization. And when ovum and sperm fertilize, they will form the zygote. Zygote will develop into embryo, and embryo will develop into fetus, and finally after 9 months, fetus will develop into a complete baby. But if fertilization does not occur, then what happens? Like I said, in female body, every month from menarche, onset of menstrual cycle, from menarche till menopause, till the menstrual cycle stop, every month ovum is released in fallopian tube. In fallopian tube. And this ovum remain viable for 48 hours. During these 48 hours, if sexual intercourse takes place, then fertilization will take place. Or else, if fertilization does not take place, what happens? No fertilization will occur If no fertilization will occur, then what happens? This ovum with the uterine wall, ovum with the uterus thickening, the uterine wall, and some blood flow releases out from vagina, releases out from vagina, and this is known as menses. If no fertilization takes place, menses will occur in female. Menstrual cycle or periods will take place, and that non-fertilized ovum with the uterine wall thickenings and some blood flow will be released out from the vagina. But in case if fertilization occur, if the sperm and the ovum they come in contact, so if fertilization occur, fertilization will always takes place in fallopian tube, or you can say oviduct. As fertilization takes place in fallopian tube, then what will happen? In the fallopian tube only zygote will form. Zygote, ovum plus sperm develops into zygote. This zygote will undergo mitosis, repeated cell division. Because of mitosis, it will develop into embryo. Now this embryo will develop fingers, body parts, and when all these fingers and body parts and head is differentiated, we start calling it fetus, right? And after 40 weeks, or we say 9 months, this fetus will develop into fully grown baby, and this baby will be delivered out from the birth canal. Cervix and the vagina, they makes the birth canal, and from here the baby will come out from the female body. So there will be delivery of the baby. Now during this time, what happened? For these 9 months, the baby is in the womb of the female, right? This is a very important question, students, that when fertilization occur, the embryo plus uterus walls, they get interdigitate. Interdigitate means they get connected. The embryo wall is called trophoblast, and we are having 3 layers in uterus wall, endometrium. They both get interdigitate. Interdigitate means like this, they get connected, and when they get connected, they form glandular tissue called placenta. Placenta, right? Embryo is surrounded by a glandular tissue called placenta. Placenta, it is showing these function. It provides nourishment via blood. The female blood is providing everything for development of fetus. It is helping in exchange of gases. Placenta is helping in respiration also, in breathing also. Through the fluid only, through the blood only, the baby is getting oxygen also. That's why we say that we are evolved from fishes. At that time, when the baby is developing inside the mother's womb, they are getting oxygen from water, right? And it also helps in removal of excretory waste, whatever they have to release out, that is also through placenta. As well as placenta provides immunity. It provides immunity. There are certain immunoglobulins like IgA and IgG which are provided by placenta, so that the developing fetus will not get any type of infection. All these functions are performed by placenta, and once this placenta start nourishing the embryo, the fetus will start growing, and after 40 weeks it will develop into the complete structure. So please remember, this placenta function is very important. Now we will talk about contraception. It is a short topic given in your NCRTs also. Contraception means prevention of pregnancy. Prevention of pregnancy. Why we are talking about it? Because we know the biggest problem of our country is population explosion. If we want to control population, if we want to provide all the basic facilities to the people, then we have to control the population. And that's why our government is running some RCH program, reproductive child health care program, where we are talking about family planning, we are talking about contraception. There is a slogan also, hum do hamare do, happy family, small family. Like these, we are making public aware about these things. So whenever a couple, they have to prevent pregnancy, they don't want child, or they do not want to extend their family after two kids or after one kid, they have to use some contraceptive methods. These contraceptive methods are divided into three basic categories. There are certain physical barriers which can be used externally to prevent contact between sperm and ovum. There are some chemical methods where we are using either uh, oral pills, or we are using some contraceptive devices by which we can prevent fusion between sperm and ovum. There are some surgical methods. Surgical methods are called the permanent methods, irreversible methods, where we are performing certain surgeries so that the male gamete sperm will not come in contact with the ovum, or the ovum will not come in contact with the sperm. So these are the three categories of contraception. I will just tell you about the examples, what we study in each. In physical barriers, generally we say the males and females can use condoms. They can use condoms. In case of females, they can also use cervical caps. I will say cervical caps is only for female because cervix is the reason in females only. So condoms, cervical caps comes under physical barrier. They can be used externally to avoid fusion of gametes. Then we have the chemical methods where we are suggesting couples to consume oral pills. These oral pills are having the hormonal combination of estrogen and progesterone. So they will prevent ovum formation, they will prevent fusion between the gametes. In chemical methods only, here I want to mention IUDs. IUDs stands for intrauterine devices. Intrauterine devices means they are inserted inside the uterus of female. IUDs is only for females. Now these intrauterine devices, common example is copper T. In copper T, it is a T-shaped wire of copper. It is inserted inside from the uterus of female, and it blocks the fallopian tube. And if the fallopian tubes get blocked, the sperm will not reach to the ovum and fertilization will not occur. The last method is the surgical method, where you can see in these pictures, we are performing some small surgery in the male reproductive system or the female reproductive system. In male reproductive system, as you can see, the vasa deferens, the tube which is coming out from testis, is cutted and tied. See, it is tied also. We make a cut and we tie it so that the sperm will not release to the ureter. In case of female surgery, in case of female body surgery, we cut the fallopian tube and tie it. Okay, so when vasa deferens is cut, we call it vasectomy. When vasa deferens is cut and tied, we call it vasectomy. Vasectomy is in males. And when fallopian tube is cut, we call it tubectomy. Very simple to remember. V for vasa, V for vasectomy. Fallopian tube is tubectomy. So surgical methods, if it is for males, you call it vasectomy. If it is for females, you call it tubectomy. And the last topic of this chapter is sexually transmitted diseases, STDs. STDs, a major problem. The most common problem is in STD is AIDS. AIDS, that is a very fatal disease. The word AIDS stand for A for acquired, I for immuno, D for deficiency, and S for syndrome. In case of AIDS, which is acquired by human after birth, the immune system of our body become deficient and we suffer from symptoms of many diseases. Syndrome word is used when there are symptoms of many diseases. So AIDS is a sexually transmitted diseases. Sexually transmitted diseases means which spread or which transmit, sorry, which transmits during sexual intercourse. They are called STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. Right? So, there are some diseases, STDs, which are caused by bacteria. There are some STDs which are caused by viruses. Right? In case of bacterial STD, we will take example of gonorrhea and syphilis. These are bacterial STDs. Whereas in case of viral diseases, which we will include genital warts and HIV or herpes. HIV virus. HIV is the name of virus causing AIDS. Right? AIDS is caused by a virus called HIV. HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus. It makes our immunity system deficient, weak. So the person will suffer from some other infections, many infections, and finally the person will die if this disease is not diagnosed in its early period. What are the preventions? What are the preventions of these STDs? These STDs preventions are never to have multiple sex partners, always use condoms while sexual intercourse, and also don't use syringes, blades, or any objects which are coming in contact with your fluids with one another. These things should be personal only, like your razors, your syringes, your needles, they should not be shared. Okay? All these are the preventive methods by which we can protect ourselves from these sexually transmitted diseases. So, that's all from the chapter How Do Organisms Reproduce. I hope you have learned this chapter. Keep learning. See you soon.